Man, I think at the gym you just got to use more circular saws.
Right, right.
You got to lift circular saws instead
Yeah,
of weights. That's the
exactly.
key. I think.
Well, here we all are, the round table I promised a while back. All four of us, the reviewers from the Headphone Show, talking about the new AirPods Pro 2. We've been using them, well, for quite a while now. As it ends up, this isn't the first time we filmed this. We had a technical issue the first time around, but more time to try things out and see how we feel about them. So, without any more delays, here we are, AirPods Pro 2. Let's get into it, guys.
We are all, I think it's fair to say, on the hardcore side of the audiophile world. And so for us, sound quality is like key. It's the most important thing, or it's the thing that we are, most interested in with this stuff. And so I guess we could talk about the sound quality of the AirPods Pro 2. For me, the most interesting thing, there's a couple of interesting things with the sound quality. One of them is that it's not exactly like Harman. There's less ear gain there, but it is, for me, kind of like, as mentioned this before, kind of like at the upper end of like what I find to be tolerable before it gets fatiguing. But it's good that the balance between upper mids and treble is right. At least it's closer there than it was on the original for me. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on the sound quality, just in general.
I actually feel the same way. I feel like it rides that line just to like as much treble as I would want. If it was any more than that, it would be a bit too much for me in some areas. But I think it
Right.
rides that line really, really well. But other than that, I feel like the sound quality is great. I feel like they are not really heavily limited by their codec too much. I know that's like a big debate point. A lot of people talk about the codec limitations of the AirPods Pros, but I feel like they are just so good across the board that the codec doesn't really matter too much. Spicy take. But yeah, they're really good. They sound more detailed. They sound more dynamic. It's just an all-around tight, good sounding, not fatiguing, not overwhelming. I'd say pretty neutral wireless in-ear.
You mentioned neutral, but to talk specifically, I guess for people who aren't familiar, like when it comes to sound quality, this is often determined by, or it's largely determined by frequency response and the overall tonal balance relative between bass, mids, treble, etc. And this style of tuning that they've gone for here on the AirPods Pro 2 is, I think we all agree, it's generally solid. And it wasn't exactly so solid on the AirPods Max, like the over-ear ones.
Right.
And I want to get your guys' take. For those of you guys who've heard it, I think DMS, you and I were maybe a little bit more critical of the AirPods Max than Chrono was, but
yeah, it wasn't my favorite.
Just in general, yeah. I guess maybe I'll just ask you guys. For those who've heard it, where does this fall in comparison to the AirPods Max?
I'll start because I wasn't as offended by the AirPods Max as you guys were. But I will say that the AirPods Pro 2 are better, I think, better sounding as a headphone than the AirPods Max. And I thought that of the first generation AirPods Pro. And this second gen, I feel like they just really nailed it. So if I had to choose between all three of Apple's headphones, I think they're the best one. And not by a small margin would actually be the AirPods Pro 2.
Precog, anything else just about the tuning of the AirPods Pro 2 that you want to speak to? Are there any tuning quirks, I guess, as well, is the question? Because we're nitpicking the sound quality.
Yeah, for sure. So I think, to lend context, I generally heard the original AirPods Pro as being quite inoffensive. The bass on it was moderately boosted. It was a bit recessed in the upper mid-range regions, and then it had something of a mid-treble dip, which just lent to a very inoffensive but sort of maybe not so exciting sound overall. And I think what the AirPods Pro Gen 2 does is it takes everything up a little bit, a notch in terms of excitement. So by this, I mean that it has, like, at least to me, it has significantly more bass. It has a more aggressive rise to the upper mid-range, and then it also has a little bit more energy at around like 6 or 7 kHz in the mid-treble, which gives it some spice. To what you guys were saying about how it's right on the edge, I would concur with that. And in fact, it was almost a little bit too much for me at first. But I think with a little bit of listening, my ears have acclimated to it, basically, just because I've had them in my ears all the time. And it could also just be a little bit of that auto EQ that the AirPods Pros have that is doing the trick for me.
Right. And so for those who are unaware, that's basically like the volume-based attenuation that goes on to a certain degree, right?
Yeah, it's super super nuanced. There's so much more to it, I feel like, as well, because if you're like in the gym, for example, if you're running on the treadmill and you knock the position of the AirPods Pros like slightly in your ears, sometimes you'll hear the frequency response adjust to sort of accommodate that and keep that channel matching between the two earbuds. So I think there's a lot more to it than just the volume matching that it also tries to compensate for.
It's also one of the things that makes it nearly impossible or very difficult to measure or get a consistent result on the measurement
Yep.
rigs.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, so as far as just to continue with the sound quality, as far as like the what we call sort of the subjective aspects of the technicalities, where would you guys place the AirPods Pro 2? And then maybe also like where would you kind of if we're not talking about like any of the features or the noise canceling, if we're comparing this to like wired in-ear headphones, what kind of price point would we aim this at, or would we place this?
Personally, if it was a wired earbud, I feel like, or wired IEM, somewhere in like the $150 range for me personally. I definitely think that at the same price as the AirPods Pro 2, you're going to get a better sound quality out of a wired IEM, no questions asked. I circled back though later, like I said, there's the whole Atmos thing, which kind of changes it, but I'll reserve that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, like somewhere between 100 and 150. I think the key thing there is that like there are a lot of IEMs coming out now, wired IEMs in the more budget segment that are really good value, that are kind of like pushing themselves into that territory. So it's hard to say, uniquely like this is the price bracket it would fall, because at that price point there are better and worse as well, right? So It's kind of hard to nail that down, but I would say surely not more than 150, or you could find comparable sound quality in sub $150 wired in-ears. Once you start getting up to the price point of these, when they're not on sale, let's say, then it's not too far. Like the distance there isn't too far from like the Blessing 2 and Blessing 2 Dusk, which are, highly recommended in your headphones. And that's really where that sound quality threshold, I think, starts to, at least for me, it starts to change. Chrono, I think you actually maybe have a different opinion.
I don't think that I don't think they have the level of technical capability or something like the Blessing 2. But for me, it's close enough to where if I was choosing between the two, like let's say the AirPods Pro were priced the same as the Blessing 2, which the Blessing 2 are more expensive, I'd still take the AirPods Pro over the Blessing 2. Personally.
And now that's because of the functionality and the features and the noise canceling.
The functionality, the features. If we're talking sound quality, I think, price tag more appropriate would be like 150, 200. Maybe that's a stretch. But, I feel like you're getting a really good tonality. I also really enjoy the dynamics that the headphone has. And I don't know if it's just me, but like compared to the Gen 1, I also felt like they had a slightly more spacious soundstage. Actually, when I first tried them on, I thought the spatial audio was on, but it was actually off. So I feel like that also improved. But then if I'm being honest, like I haven't tried a lot of like the budget IEM. So I don't know what's changed over the past year, but compared to some of the ones I've tried, I actually think that it performs better in that category. So 150, 200, they're just solid sounding.
Could you game on them?
I have not tried that. My projected answer, if I were to try them, is no. I would not game in the top.
Yeah, I wouldn't
That's
either.
the limit.
And that's just because the latency.
Yeah, well, one, that, also the imaging. I know some people game on like the earpods, like the wired ones, but I feel like that's just edgy, man.
That's just to be a hipster. Precog, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would concur with what you and DMS said. They generally reside somewhere around the $150 mark for me in terms of their overall sound quality. I think it's also important, like you said, to note that the market has become extremely competitive at the bottom end. I think that you can definitely find stuff that's comparable in sound quality for cheaper, but when you're sort of looking at the market as a whole, that's where I would say they sort of fall in, that $150 price point or so. In terms of like their technical qualities, again, I think that they are definitely more technical than the original AirPods Pros were, and that's just to some degree a product of their frequency response. That boost to the upper mid-range and the mid-treble is going to inherently enhance like perception of clarity, and it's just going to have a more exciting sound in general from that bass shelf, which gives it a greater sense of slam and dynamics.
I think that's basically the sound quality cover. We'll get to the Atmos stuff in a second. I know DMS is chomping at the bit for that one.
Right.
But I wanted to get your guys' take on the ANC stuff, the noise canceling and the ambient modes. How have you guys found that with the AirPods Pro 2?
Well, the adaptive mode to it is pretty cool. In the original advertisement for them, when they were revealing them, they showed a woman in transparency mode being able to hear the world around her, but walking past a jackhammer and not hearing the jackhammer, but being able to hear her friend talking and all those things. And it does attenuate shockingly loud noises pretty well, I found. An example being I was using them outside talking to somebody while operating a circular saw, cutting some pieces of wood just for stuff around the house. And I cut the saw on and it would immediately attenuate very clearly, but it did it so fast that you didn't ever hear it get loud. It's just the saw is quiet. The cool thing is while that was operating, other sounds were still audible.
I feel like my experience has been a little less positive with it, especially when I'm at the gym, when people slam weights down abruptly and stuff like that. I notice that it will try to attenuate it, but it's not quite like fast enough sometimes. Like it'll cut out and then it will equalize again. And it's a bit more jarring than it is useful to me. But in terms of the ANC itself is great in the gym. Like there's no problem with that. It's just more when you're in those transparency modes where it can be a little bit more finicky, I've found in my experience.
Man, I think at the gym you just got to use more circular saws.
Right.
You got to lift circular saws instead of weights.
Exactly.
That's the key. I think it kind of makes sense though, because if you think about like an intermittent sound of dropping a weight, that's not a continuous sound. Whereas a circular saw or like an ambulance or whatever, is a consistent tone. So that makes sense. I suppose if you're continuously dropping the weights, then maybe it would have an easier time figuring that out. Chrono, your thoughts on the ANC quality?
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I'm a bit of a cave dweller, so I haven't really put it through its paces when it comes to going outside and testing stuff.
Well,
but if I'm at my desk,
I was just saying to somebody, outside is a thing. Like if you go outside, you should try it. There are things out there. It's worth checking out sometimes.
Okay, look, I go, but I haven't had the weather's been kind of weird, so it hasn't been fun going outside. But in the confines of my office, if I put these on and I'm working, I can't hear my keyboard, and for me, that's good enough for now. If I go outside ever, I'll give you an update. How does that sound? But I mean, actually,
sounds
but
good.
I've only traveled like a little bit with them, and if I'm in a plane, I can't hear the engine or anything. So for me, the ANC works great. Transparency mode, I haven't put much to use.
So I'm wearing the QC45s right now, just wireless ones I had laying around. I've used the AirPods Pro ones a lot and all that. These headphones and every other wireless IEM I've ever had, depending on where you sit on an airplane, will make popping sounds during takeoff, and the AirPods Pro 2 do not.
Nice.
Interesting.
Well, that's good. Next flight I go on, I'm going to try this out, see how it goes.
Bring a circular saw.
I'm gonna bring 10 headphones with me, and people are gonna think I'm crazy on the airplane. Just swapping
Just
between
make sure
10
you wear them
headphones
all
as we
at
take
once.
off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And bring circular saws on the plane. They let you do that now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't see any problems there.
It's just what I needed.
No.
It's for work, I promise.
DMS, tell us about Atmos.
Well, okay. So the thing about Atmos I will say is that you will have a better experience on iOS with Atmos if you're using AirPods. Primarily with things like Apple Music, the quality of mixes does vary a lot because Atmos has just recently become a lot more popular. But music being made for Atmos is actually being mixed in surround sound for Atmos and for things like AirPods, which is really cool. It's natively supported on Apple Music, and there's a lot of tracks that now are available for it. And this, to me, is the area where the AirPods excelled, and the one category in which I felt like took them beyond the capabilities of any wired IEMs I had, because it goes from anywhere near being an in-your-head experience to a very around-you experience, a very in-the-room experience, something that's very reminiscent of binaural recordings, though it, once again, heavily depends on the quality of the mix. One of the things I found that benefited that the most is if you have an iOS device, you can use the laser scanning Face ID sensor to scan your ear and generate a personalized HRTF that's then used to better process the spatial information in Atmos. And it didn't seem to really make much of a difference for me for music without Atmos on, but with Atmos, it took things from being like just sort of there's a vocal somewhere around here, to laser sharp center image vocal, laser sharp over here, there's a string section playing, things like that.
Well, I guess the question that I would have for you on the Atmos thing is, for the audiophile who is not yet an iOS device user, is the Atmos functionality of the AirPods Pro 2 sufficient to push them over the edge? Should I buy an iPhone, basically? I'm not going to.
I think it's worth it.
If I were,
when I went to Germany with you guys, I was using the Pixel 6. And, it was a great device, a great experience. I have ended up with an iOS device again, not entirely for the Atmos performance, but a big part of it has to do with the music streaming performance and benefits that I've gotten from that.
The last thing I want to ask you guys is, like, what do you think this, like the Apple AirPods Pro 2, does to kind of like the in-ear headphone market generally? We talked a little bit about this already, but like I just want to get your sense of, like, obviously, like, we think it's a great product and competitively priced and all this kind of stuff, but like, should the IEM world that is a growing trend right now, should it be worried about devices like this?
Yeah, I don't really think that the audiophile market has to worry as much about it, just because there's always traditionally been this sort of chasm between them, where audiophiles sort of generally believe that wired IMs are better than truly wireless IMs.
Right.
At the same time, I also don't think that the AirPods Pro 2 Gen 2, I don't think that they're groundbreaking enough to sort of shift the paradigm around that argument, that sort of divide. I mean, they're pretty great, I think, but I also think that they're only just sort of like the logical step forward from the original AirPods Pros, which, to be fair, were groundbreaking, but like the return, not the return, but like the amount of impact that these have relative to the original AirPods Pros is just not as much to me.
Right, that's fair. Plus, you can't have the joy of source memeing and cable rolling.
Right.
Just
of course. It's just, yeah.
All the audiophile things and the fiddly bits of plugging things into DAPs and whatever else.
But wait, hold on. I'm gonna do a spicy take. I think it's spicy. It's like, well, I would consider myself to be a hardcore audiophile, given that at any given time I might be rolling through 20 different headphones in 1 week. And still my in-ear of choice would be the AirPods Pro 2. I feel like they blend a set level sound quality with a rich feature set, and that's like not something that's very common in the audiophile space. And as I highly value convenience, and there's why convenience is why I don't like certain sort of amplifiers or certain headphones. And I feel like even as an audiophile, there is a point where I can like prefer this over like pretty much all the wired stuff.
Yeah, I can definitely see
Right.
There's an argument for convenience, but at the same time, I think that there's a stronghold demographic of audiophiles who just don't care about convenience, and you sort of see this in a lot of like memes. Like there's people who will run power, like specific power to their house, like shielded
Right.
power, shielded cables, stuff like that. They'll take their DAP, their like DAC amp with them on the train and stuff like that. Obviously, these are extreme examples, but this is just sort of to illustrate that there's a stronghold demographic of the audiophile world that just doesn't care about convenience, even though we care to some degree about it.
I'm definitely, I do feel like I'm in the minority there. I mean, an even less extreme and more common example is just people wearing like old school Odysseys, where it's like you need to hang them from the ceiling to keep them from breaking your neck. Okay, that's a joke, but
Yeah, but it's true, because like I don't even think, for the longest time, because I've been like into headphones, like wired headphones, proper headphones, quote unquote, for so long, that like the idea of the convenience that the AirPods Pro 2 and similar true wireless devices bring isn't really something that I think about on a day to day. So when I do use them, I'm like, oh, this is new. I can just go out in public and I don't need to worry about bringing a DAP or whatever, like whatever I would otherwise do. So, the convenience, it's almost like I'm rediscovering that convenience where other people are like, you have headphones on a string. That's weird. I saw that on Reddit recently.
Actually, two things on that. One is what you guys have been saying. So it's convenience. And I feel like this is more than good enough that any audiophile should just consider them. It's like, hey, you know what? You care about sound quality? Well, guess what? This exists right here. The other thing is AirPods are the best-selling audio device on the planet. A lot of people buy AirPods. A lot of people know about AirPods. And if anything, and I think this is one of the most overlooked areas of this whole product, this is good for the audiophile community because this raises the bar for sound quality for the average user who might not care that much about audio quality yet.
I love that you said that. I completely agree. This is the kind of thing that we shouldn't accept worse than from now on because it's the standard. Chronicle recently mentioned that he thinks the Samsung Galaxy Buds 2 Pro are still the best sounding true wireless in-ear headphones. And that's okay to be wrong because the AirPods Pro 2 actually are the best. No, I'm just kidding. But I want to ask you guys actually, so in my view, yes, the AirPods Pro 2, even as a non-Apple user, the AirPods Pro 2 are the best sounding ones to me. I know that, for me, my ear canal, the Buds 2 Pro and many of the other, good true wireless IEMs that are out there are just too shouty for me. But I want to get your guys' take. Do you think that the AirPods Pro 2 are the best true wireless that you've heard? And I know, Theo, you've heard some ones, Precog, you've heard some ones that I haven't heard. Just want to get your guys' take on that.
That's a good question. I mean, I certainly don't agree that the Galaxy Buds Pro 2 are better. I mean, I have them on hand right now. I've listened to them briefly. I didn't think they were better. But at the same time, I also wouldn't say that the AirPods Pro Gen 2 are categorically better than anything on the market. I think that one of the things that Apple is not very good about is giving their users sort of the freedom of choice. And by this, I'm mostly pointing to the lack of equalization. If you look at the Sony earbuds, for example, the WF-1000XM4, those have equalizer in them in their app. And that's just, that level of granularity is just something that you're not, at least not so far, going to get with Apple and their AirPods.
Right, apart from the accommodation presets and whatever. And Samsung has some. I don't remember if they do.
I believe they do, but you have to download an app too. Yeah.
But yeah, I remember the Sonys. I mean, the Sonys also by default are a little bit more relaxed too. So, I mean, and for me, it is really that it's the AirPods Pro 2 or the Sony WF-1000XM4s. It's those are the ones that are at the top of the list for me. Chrono, your thoughts? Is this the best true wireless that you've heard?
Yeah, I haven't tried the Samsung ones, but of the true wireless earbuds that I've tried, these are definitely by far my favorite.
DMS?
So here's the thing. For me, I personally find these to be the best. But the thing is there are so many good ones out there that if you have something else you prefer more, there's no shame in that. And there's so many good ones if you were picking between these or the Galaxies or whatever.
No, you should feel
probably
shame.
not going to make a wrong choice either way. Yeah, for shame.
Shame.
It's not
if you don't like what I like.
No, here's the thing.
Shame.
Yeah, you're a Galaxy Buds user. That's fine. It's not like you're a DT990 user.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh God, shots
That would
fired
be actual
anyways.
shame.
I'll bring that back up.
Suddenly the comments are just there's a deluge. No, sorry to interrupt.
Blame me, not them. But yeah, I don't know. There's so many and they're so good. Either way, you're probably not going to make a wrong choice. If you're an iOS user, you're probably best off with the AirPods Pro 2. But there's a lot of great choices on the market now. The point is that cheap things are getting good things are getting cheap, and wireless is actually now a viable option for people who care about sound quality.
All right, and with that, I think we can end this roundtable.
So I hope you guys liked this video. If you want to see more roundtables like this, leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you'd like for us to talk about. But otherwise, if you like this video, like down below. Comment letting us know what you want to see in the future. If you want to get active in the community, you can at the forum or the Discord, both linked in the video description. And as always, don't forget to stick around and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. Till the next one. Peace.